Hey guys, SilkySoap Tech here, and welcome back. Today on this video we're going to be talking about the Gate Titan version 3 Mosfet. So if you guys have been a subscriber of this channel for any length of time, you'll know that I'm a really big fan of the G36 platform. So about a month and a half ago or so, I bought an SRC G36C Boneyard from HopUp. And I got a build plan for it and ordered all the parts. When everything came in, I got it all together and it's working awesomely. So in addition, I got a Gate Titan Mosfet as one of the parts for this gun. And let me tell you, it's a really, really great Mosfet. I really do like it. And I do believe it's a little bit better than the BTC Spectre or BTC Chimera version 3 Mosfets. I've worked with both of those Mosfets, and now I've worked with the Gate Titan version 3, and I can say that I kind of like this Mosfet a little bit more. It just seems to be a little less prone to failure. So without further ado, let's get down and talk about the Gate Titan version 3 in a little more detail. Let's talk about installing it, and yeah, there are a few little things you got to know about when you install it into a version 3 gearbox that make it a little bit easier to install. So let's get right down to that. So when you buy the Gate Titan version 3 basic Mosfet, you get quite literally just the Mosfet and some basic features. You do not get actually the stuff that you need to properly install this and get it working right. Now you get everything you need to physically install the Mosfet, but not to install the Mosfet into the G36 or AK and get it to be recognized. You do need the USB link or the Bluetooth link for your iPhone to get this Mosfet to work for your gun. You have to program it before you can use it. So the USB link allows you to connect to your Android device, or it allows you to connect to your laptop or PC. You need the Bluetooth link to connect to your iOS device. So that's something that a lot of people don't know. When you do order this, you just have to be aware of that. You're going to be spending an extra $25 to get this, in addition to this costing about $90. So some people would go ahead and make the jump to get the advanced version for about $150. I already had one of these, so I didn't have to buy I didn't need to really buy the advanced version. I got one of these from a customer that just gave it to me. So yeah, just keep that in mind whenever you go with the basic Mosfet route for your version 3. You do need to buy the USB link or the Bluetooth link for your iOS device. Alright, so I've got my whole G36 apart here so that I can show you how to install this Mosfet into this gearbox shell. But real quick, one of the first things you should do when you are installing a Gate Mosfet or a BTC Mosfet or any Mosfet for that fact is read the manual here. Now, Gate is generous enough to send you a really easy to read manual here. It's really not that long. I think at the most it's 30 pages. You can read the information that you need to install your Mosfet and be done in about 5 minutes. So it's really not a hard read at all. But definitely read it. It does have some good information in it, and this video installation guide is not meant to be a replacement for that manual. So definitely read it so that you can stay along with your warranty. And if at the end of the day you read your manual and you install it appropriately according to the manual and you can't get your Mosfet to work, now you have a warranty case that you can present to Gate. But let's move on to actually installing the Mosfet. So you get some really basic stuff, and like I said, you need the USB link to get this thing to work, so you got to buy that in addition to the basic Mosfet. But other than that, you get everything you need to install this. You get a Dean's plug for your battery, just in case you don't already have a Dean's LiPo battery, so I don't need that, I've got plenty of those. You get some stickers for both your selector plate and for your trigger, which we're going to talk a little more about that later. And then you get some mounting screws for your Mosfet to kind of be screwed down to your gearbox so that it secures the board appropriately. You get some metal and plastic shims. We're going to talk more about that later as well. Alright, so one of the first things I do, especially when installing a Gate Titan in a version 3 gearbox shell, is clear the gearbox out so that I can actually get this Mosfet to fit. And so I will carve this little slot here that you see in this gearbox shell so that I can slide the Mosfet in. It's actually really, really difficult to install this version 3 Titan Mosfet without carving this slot in your gearbox shell. The Dean's plug doesn't quite fit in there to pull the rest of the Mosfet through, and it's just a headache, so I always carve this slot in here with a Dremel, and it's super easy to slide the board in. Second thing I do to my gearbox shell is I completely clean it out, get rid of all those metal shards that you just created from carving this hole here, and so that those metal shards being in there might actually short your board out, so I get rid of all those. I wash this whole thing in soap and water. Same thing with my other half here, and then I let it dry with a little bit of heat applied to it from like a hair dryer or a heat gun at a low setting, so that you dry it out nicely. So next thing I do is I actually make sure my board can fit appropriately. So I slide that in there like that. It's very easy. and then I settle the board in place. Now, the reason I always kind of test this is just to make sure that my board fits appropriately. You don't want to jam it in, you don't want to force it to fit. This board is made out of plastic, and your gearbox shell is made out of metal, hopefully. So metal is going to be a lot stronger than plastic, so if you try to jam this plastic in there, you're definitely going to create a problem with your Mosfet. But it looks like my board fits great, nice and snug. It doesn't look like it's caught on anything. As a matter of fact, it has a little bit of looseness to it, which is better than it being too tight. If it's too tight, you need to modify your gearbox shell to fit, which that's just a case-by-case basis. That might take you a while with the Dremel. But thankfully, ours fits here today. Next thing I do is I take a screw, and the screw that they provide you with, as long as it fits your gearbox shell, and I put a plastic washer between it and the board, and I screw it down. Now, the manual tells you, hey, put metal washer, plastic washer, or metal washer, and then plastic washer so that your board is insulated from your screw. That's good and all, but I only needed one plastic washer to get this to fit appropriately, so that's all I used. If you need more, use more. But just make sure that it doesn't affect your shimming on your sector gear, and make sure that you're just not shorting your board out when you're installing this. So that looks nice and good. Next thing I do is I'll look and make sure the board isn't flexing in any place. I'll also make sure that this kind of half circle on the gearbox on the Titan Mosfet lines up appropriately with my bushing, which it does. Tighten that down nicely, not super tight to where you're going to strip anything, but tight enough to where you're holding the board in place. And it looks good. The board looks really good. Like I said, it's not flexing anywhere to show that there's signs of intolerance or fitment issues. All right, so now that that's good and well, I install my sector gear. Now, personally, I shim before I install my Gate Titan. I've never had a problem doing it this method. Some people might disagree, but I've never had a problem doing it this way. So this is the way I've always done it. So install your sector gear, make sure it spins freely. It sounds like it does spin great. And then the next thing I do is install the upper half. Make sure you get all the metal tabs aligned up appropriately and slide it in. Now that that's slid in, it looks really good. Make sure that your sector gear has plenty of clearance. It looks like it does over this little tab here that's going to be the other part of the light bar sensor that detects when to cut off power to the Mosfet so that you get a semi-auto shot. That looks fine. It looks like my sector gear also clears the mounting screw there, but always double check by screwing down your gearbox shell. So let's screw that down and test it here if I can find my screws. There we go. All right, that looks great actually. Let's rotate and make sure that we're not hitting anything, and you do want to listen really closely. Make a full revolution here. That's my fingers scraping up against the board. Sounds great. I'm not feeling any snagging here at all. If you feel snagging, immediately stop, open it up, see where the snagging is, and try to correct it. And really here, there's going to be a lot of difficulty with correcting any errors at this point. Because it's either going to be upper gearbox shell related, which you can kind of trim down and get it to fit appropriately. Your sector gear might be too wide. I've not encountered that one. I've heard of some people encountering that, in which case you're going to have to get a new sector gear. Sometimes sector delay chips interfere. If that's the case, you do need a new sector delay chip or modify your current one. Sometimes that screw there is going to interfere as well, but it does not currently. So everything here is looking really good, and we can move on to the rest of the installation, which I can show you guys without opening up the gearbox shell again. So here, if you have a type of selector plate like this that's just all plastic with no metal tabs on it, then you're going to need a white sticker for this, which does come with the Mosfet kit. So this white sticker you want to put right here for a G36 model. That information is in the manual, so you can know where to actually place it. And then you slide your selector plate on. There we go. Almost forgot how to install that. And slide it back and forth. Make sure your sticker doesn't catch on anything. Make sure your sticker's not going to start coming off midway through, because then you're just going to have a total malfunction mid-game or something like that. So that looks really good. It's cycling fine. And you can also see like your light bar tabs in here, where it's going to be sensing your selector plate. So that looks nice and good. So let's move on to the other side here. And the next part of the installation is actually pulling out the slack between your trigger and this kind of trigger trolley here. Really, you know, I've not had any slack here that I thought was concerning. You get these little plastic shim type things to get between your in your trigger trolley and between your trigger, and that's just supposed to shim out the slack there, I guess, so that it's a lot more precise of a system when it detects your trigger coming into play here. But I've not had to do that, so I just kind of slid that in there and it worked fine. Installed it as if I would normally install a version 3 trigger. So that is how you install your Gate Titan MOSFET. This is kind of the most cautious approach so that you make sure you don't damage anything. Make sure that none of the metal parts are just incorrectly jamming up against the MOSFET board, because you could seriously have a critical failure. You could shim this too high and it could interfere with the plastic upper top of the board here and just rip it to shreds. And you're pretty much done from that point. You've wasted a lot of money if that happens to you. So let's move on to the programming aspect of this video. One thing I forgot to mention is that you need to install this white sticker here on your trigger trolley as well, so that your light bar sensor can actually detect that you're pulling the trigger. It's just a really simple sticker. Slide it right there. You can see where that's going to need to go. You can actually clean this off with some degreaser, wash it with soap and water, let it dry, remove all the grease, and then the sticker is really easy to slide on. But if you try to slide it on while it's greasy, it's not going to stick. So yeah, do that and you'll be set. Alright, so once you've installed the Gate Titan version 3 into your gun, G36, AK, or whatever, you need to download this control station on Gate's website for your laptop here, or PC. Once you get it installed, you need to use a USB or micro USB here to a USB cord, and then plug your micro USB end to your USB link so that you can plug it into your gun. Now, if you unplug it from your link here, it'll, you know, obviously it says disconnected. If you plug it in, hopefully it recognizes it. Mine initially did not. I had to actually install some drivers to get it to install appropriately. And here, if it's connected and it's not being sensed, like there, you can say, oh, my USB link is plugged in, and then it'll take you to a website where you can install the drivers to actually get it to recognize. So that's what you do if it's not recognizing. If it's recognizing fine, then you don't need to do that, obviously. So plug it into your gun. The USB link will shine green if it's working appropriately, and there we go. It says we're connected. It shows me my serial number, my firmware version, and my available versions and whatever. So you can click upgrade here to get the advanced settings unlocked. But when you initially install this MOSFET, to get it working, you need to do an update, which takes no time at all. From there, you can go to settings and see what type of settings you're offered here: safe semi-auto, safe semi-semi, safe semi-burst, etc. I'm on safe semi-auto. I don't really care for a burst function right now. And you can modify your burst functions as needed. Obviously, with the basic Titan MOSFET here, you're not going to get many options, but you will get some options that will be afforded to you. Here in the bottom right of the screen here where my mouse is, you can actually program it for standard, high torque, high speed, DSG, etc. You know, whenever I've installed a Gate Titan, I've never needed to say, hey, I'm using a high speed gear or a DSG gear. I have it recognized as standard, and I'm using a 13:1 ratio gears, short stroke ×2. So I've not needed to do any of this right here. I'm really not sure what the point is in this. 19 tooth might make some sense. I've not had to do that before. So again, this is an as needed concept here. There's some active motor braking if you want any. I have 0 because I don't care for active motor braking really. Battery protection, I can plug it up to LiPo. I'm using a 3-cell. You can program what would be a low voltage for you. We'll do 3.2. And you can do 30 round limit, blah, blah, blah. I have that off. Cycle detection is on. I don't understand how the MOSFET would work without cycle detection, but whatever. And once you're done doing the stuff that you want to do here, you can go to sensors. Yes, I understand. This is where you program it to work with your gun. So you have AK type and G36 type and AUG type. Obviously, we're using G36, so we're going to do G36 type. And from there, you can it'll program. It'll go through a set of things where it says, "Hey, flip it to safety." Okay, well, your safety is good. Flip it to semi. And it'll have a parameter here, and so you can tell that white bar tells me that I'm in semi. That tells me that I'm in full auto. And you can adjust it here for some fine calibration, but mine's working fine, so I don't want to adjust it any further. And then you can go to the trigger sensor itself, and so if I pull the trigger, make a little click sound and tell me when I'm firing. And I can adjust this as needed. So if I keep going lower and lower and lower, I can basically get a hair trigger. Yes, I understand. It'll give you this warning saying that you're getting too sensitive, so that it might cause some accidental firing, which flip it to safety to see what your threshold is. If you really don't want to fire in safety, obviously. So let's get as low as we can. There we go. That's a very sensitive trigger right there. And that's part of the G36's problem too, is that it has a very long trigger pull. Also in safety, I could pull the trigger, so let's not do that. Let's go back. 15. Cool. In safety, I cannot pull the trigger and get a fire. So there we go. That's working out pretty cool. You can do a 1-stage, 2-stage, but I've just got it set up for 1 stage, and obviously I'm set up for a G36 type. So that's basically how you set up your Gate Titan version 3. And yeah, statistics, this is really unlocked from the advanced firmware update, the advanced mode. I really don't care about my statistics. It's whatever to me. This DTC here is diagnostic trouble codes. It'll tell you like what a problem is. So if your Gate Titan's having a problem, it'll light up one of these codes and it'll tell you what that code is. So that's pretty cool. And you can send a report to Gate, which is neat as well. All in all, this is a really, really neat system. I really think it's definitely where, you know, computerized airsoft MOSFETs should go in the future, is this really cool control board. And also, this doesn't really deter you. You don't need to carry around a PC to program your MOSFET. You can, you know, get it for your phone, you can get it on your iPhone, your Android, and you can get the control board itself, so you can just carry that around with you and plug it up to your gun. So this is just kind of more some icing on the cake in terms of your MOSFET. This is not a needed thing, really, to get this MOSFET to work, though it is needed to get this MOSFET to work, but Gate didn't have to do this. They kind of went ahead and did this as an extra measure, an extra bit of thing that you can have for your MOSFET. So yeah, this is how you get your Gate Titan version 3 working. All right, so before we end this video, we're gonna show the gun off in terms of safe, semi, and auto functions. So batteries plugged up, and safe, obviously nothing. And semi, some really awesome trigger response with a really short trigger pull. Loving it. Full auto. There you go. Alright guys, well that's going to bring an end to this video. As always, thank you for watching, and please like, comment, and subscribe. Comment down below what you think on my opinion of Gate Titan versus BTC. I just tend to think that Gate Titans work a lot better and for a lot longer and require a little bit less maintenance when compared to BTC, Spectre, and Chimera. But that's just my experience, so please tell me yours. Again, thank you for watching, but that's going to have to do it for this video. I'll see you guys in the next video of whatever the heck I'm doing. But until then, stay tuned, techs.